Well, good morning. This is Mark Rothermick. I'm product specialist with Genesis Ag in the Kansas City area, and wanted to welcome you here this morning to another episode of the Genesis Ag podcast series. We're here today. Wanted to spend a little bit of time with Philip Davis, our president and owner of Genesis Ag. So, Philip, I'd like to welcome you on the podcast this morning.
Great to be here, Mark. I hope you're doing well and everything's great in Kansas City this morning.
Yeah, well, it's midsummer, so it is what it is. And across the Midwest, we've got a variety of environmental conditions guys are facing. But, we're coming to that time of the year. We're getting close to pollination, and we're just a few weeks from the time when there's going to be a lot of fungicides applied to the corn and also soybean crops. So I just wanted to take a few minutes and get on here with you to discuss one of our lesser known products, and that being Sentry. So I guess, Philip, I'd like to get your input into just first off, what is Sentry?
Okay, Mark, one of the things that when you're working with a biological company, and anytime there's a side behind something, typically that means death. And one of my cautions in working with anything such along the lines of Sentry, when you say it is a fungal and bacterial deterrent, that really keeps it at bay, that really caught my interest when we ran across the ability to build this product and put this product together. So in asking what Sentry is, Sentry has the ability to help that plant boost its own natural defenses. And working with biology, working with nature, I guess the theme and basis of who we are at Genesis Ag, that's kind of the focus of where we wanted to be with a product like Sentry that helps that plant when it's in a negative fungal environment, or when it's in a negative bacterial environment. What could we do? We're really working with competitive exclusion with our biological products. One of the things that we're finding in some of our studies is even like a Revita-N, Morphos, Rhizonate, is they're helping build the beneficial numbers in the soil. So when I say we're getting into some competitive exclusion, so maybe some of those detrimental pathogens may not be as present on the levels in the soils where we've got our biological program. So the Sentry is a great complement to our biological program in the means that we're working with basically plant nutrients. And because in the Sentry, the phosphorus atom that's in the Sentry is combined with 3 oxygen atoms, and that creates a product called phosphite. And that phosphite is water soluble. It's easily absorbed by the plant through the leaves and the roots. Some of our field reps, especially in some specialty crops, and I'm sure that there'll be some posts on our website from some of those guys in the specialty crops where they're using Sentry even in the root zone of the plant, where it's taken up systemically through the plant, where they foliar applied that in some very heavily diseased pressure, whether that be Phytophthora, Pythium, really detrimental root disease in some specialty crops called blackshank. We're helping that plant build its own immune system by applying the Sentry technology.
So you kind of hit a little bit, Philip, on some of the specialty crops and things. Are there certain crops or certain situations that you feel are probably better suited for Sentry in particular, or is it pretty broad spectrum?
Well, it's pretty broad spectrum, Mark, because when we don't get adequate levels of phosphorus into the plant, we can see increased levels in plant diseases. When we don't get adequate phosphorus into the plant, that plant actually goes into a stress, and we see decreased production, whether that be of leaves, roots, shoots, grain, fruit, whatever it may be, when we don't have those adequate phosphorus levels. So getting those adequate phosphorus levels in that plant is key to that plant functioning on a daily basis, the way that plant is designed to function. And when we apply the phosphorus in this form, we get very rapid absorption into the plant. The typical phosphorus molecule has 4 oxygen atoms on it. With the technology we're using in Sentry, it has 3 oxygen atom molecules there, so it can be readily absorbed into the plant much easier. So when we're doing that, we not only see the levels in the plant increase, but it has some type of a systemic effect where it continues to release over a period of time rather than just one shot. And that's how we're building this immunity in this plant with this technology. It lasts for an extended period of time. When I say it can easily last for 21 days in the plant, that you're getting the benefit of this compound enhancing that plant's natural defenses, you are.
So you talked a little bit about it being a great companion product to our biological programs, our soil programs. Obviously, that's probably one of the benefits of Sentry compared to maybe some other fungicide type products that a producer might look at. Any other additional benefits to working with Sentry?
Well, there again, Mark, we're wanting that plant to live in an environment. We're wanting that plant to produce in an environment that, when I say is as natural as it can be. We as human beings over time have taken that plant, and we've constantly impacted that plant since the beginning of time. And we, whether it be genetically modify it, whether it be the fertility products we've used from a natural approach to fertility to a chemical or synthetic approach to getting that plant to uptake plant nutrients. We've constantly tried to manipulate that plant. But this compound here works with the mechanism of the plant, that you're actually activating that plant's own natural defenses. Even if that plant already has a fungal or a bacterial pathogen in that plant, when we apply this technology, it helps those cells in the plant vamp up and really fortify their natural ability to fend that disease off, or that pathogen off, or whatever we're working with and trying to prevent there. So we're giving that plant the ability that is there in nature. We're helping assist it to counteract the negatives that it may be facing in the environment that we have that plant in. By triggering this function or response, it's actually called a synthetic required resistance, is what we're trying to do in this plant. You can look that up and read about it. It's pretty interesting for those that really want to dive into this and find out what's going on. And it's even called an induced response that we're doing with the Sentry technology. So we've also got, and I'll briefly touch on this, we've got 1 year's worth of documentation of showing what happens after some compounds are applied. And you could say fungicides are applied to a crop. We've actually took samples out of the root system of the plant to look and see, okay, what did we do to the biology in that root zone? We'll have our second year study is in the field now, looking to see what type of impact we're having on the biology. So Mark, that's interesting, and that data will be coming up. We'll have 2 years of data at the end of this growing season about what's going on in the root system. A lot of us don't think, okay, what did I do when I put on this fungicide? What did it actually do to my soil biology? Is it having an effect? Is it detrimental? Is it advantageous? And we're diving into that as well, Mark.
You know, that's a great point, Philip. It's one of the things that oftentimes as producers we overlook. You know, we find a disease or an insect or something that we want to try to eliminate from our field, and we look to a product and we realize that it is probably going to benefit us by eliminating that undesirable. But oftentimes the things we do out here also have impacts on the desirable, whether it be microbes or whether it be insects or whatever. So I think that's a great point, and I appreciate the way you shared that in talking about how, you know, the things that we work with within Genesis, we're trying to promote the plant's natural capabilities or the soil's natural capabilities. And I think that's an important thing for, you know, our clients to keep in mind, that that's always a kind of a direction that we're always going to try to work toward.
It would be ideal, Mark, and when I say we got to have a goal, it would be a great concept to have that plant where you put it out there and you're working with the soil biology, that instead of inundating the environment that crop's grown in, and we're trying to chemically manipulate it, that we're working with nature, that we're bringing that plant, that crop that we're growing, through the ability that was instilled here when this world was created, for that plant to grow and function and feed us, that we're somewhat getting back closer to that and working with the environment that we're balancing at. And it's really a balancing act, and we're just trying to get it back in balance, so we don't have to be such a hard-pressed ruler over these plants as we're trying to grow them for food and for resources.
So let's talk a little bit, Philip, about the timing of the applications. I know you mentioned earlier some guys are starting to use it maybe even in oil applications, I'm assuming at planting time. But talk a little bit, is it designed primarily as a preventative product, or will it work as a curative? When should guys reach for Sentry?
I will say, are you going to be proactive or are you going to be reactive? Would be my, I guess, response to that question. I tend to be a little bit more proactive. From our approach, if we can keep that plant healthy, let it do its own thing, Mark, we're better in the end. It is also a curative because, as I explained earlier, it helps that plant if that disease pathogen is already there in a cell. When you apply the Sentry product to the plant, it's absorbed through the leaf, through the stomata, goes into the plant very easily, and it translocates into the plant very easily through the xylem and phloem. It can move both means through the plant, through the xylem and phloem. So when it arrives in that damaged area or that damaged cell, it immediately vamps that up, that area. And one of the signaling things that's in synergy that we don't talk about, it signals the rest of the cells in that plant, okay, guys, let's bulk up. Let's vamp up. Let's get ready, because our neighbor over here we've had an invader. So it does have that help with that plant signaling and stabilizing itself and fortifying itself, so that disease or that fungal pathogen doesn't spread any more throughout that plant. We've had guys that have been applying it and been working with it, and they're seeing that this year. We've had some really good feedback, guys that are putting this on earlier with plant nutrients, and they're saying, wow, that really, we can really see the difference in the plant. They're showing it in their tissues. They're showing it in a lot of different ways, where they put the Sentry even on early. If I was looking at the market on today, and if I was a producer growing a crop, I would be very proactive. A guy was telling me yesterday that beans were approaching $15. Now, I don't know where what market he was looking at, but if I had beans anywhere over $10, I would be getting pretty excited about, okay, how many bushel can I capture? How many bushel can I get that plant to hold on to? Because it's out there now. It just depends on how many bushel we can hold on to. And so I would be very proactive with this technology and get out there earlier and keep that, when I say preventative, to keep that on that plant. We've got 21. I think I'm really conservative with an application of Sentry. You've got a 21-day window where that plant's immune system is really heightened. It could be even longer than that. So I would be out there early on this plant, and then I would be out there. You said, we're coming up to tasseling, pollination. I would definitely have this in there, because we've done some studies year before last in Illinois, and we turned out to be about almost 4 bushel, let's say 3.5 bushel better. And we were a few dollars cheaper per acre with the Sentry versus the typical. I was pretty excited about that. And of course, with the wind and everything that went through that region last year, we didn't get our harvest data out of the plot we did last year in that region, but we hope to get that again here in 2021.
What would you recommend for best ways of applying Sentry? I mean, obviously there's a lot of opportunities, airplane, aerial applications, ground applications. Is there any possibility for guys to fertigate Sentry if it has root uptake? How all can guys work with Sentry?
Well, Mark, it is a unique compound. It can be taken in systemically through the root system. So if you tended that you wanted to fertigate it, I would say, yeah, I'll go for it, because it can be absorbed and taken into the plant. And like, as I said earlier, it's easily translocated through the plant, whether it be through the roots or the leaves. So you're gonna be building that immunity. I guess to optimize it, I'd like to see it on foliar applications, because it would be probably a little more economical there. I think it's when I say a little more viable, I think you're getting a little more bang for your buck, because when there are applications where this is used in soil drenches. So there's a lot of possibilities here in the way that it can be applied. Most of my work, I will tell you, has been foliar applied on crops. It's been either corn, soybeans, whatever specialty crop I'm working with. That's the way we've applied.
Okay. And what about I mean, aerially, you're pretty standard on application rates or carrier volume, I guess is more my question. What about with ground application? Is there a preferred range of carrier volume?
No, I would say that 10 gallon, if someone felt like they, I mean, on a really heavy soybean crop and they wanted to try to force it down through the canopy, which really the way it translocates through the plant, that's not as critical as it would be with some fungicides. But you could use up to 20 gallon if you felt like, you know, or if you had undercovers or whatever that you were wanting to use that volume of water, but it's not needed, Mark, because of the way the product moves through the plant. You get it on the plant, it's going to go through the plant. I mean, that's a great, it's just a great characteristic of the compound. It's going to move through the plant. So it's not like you have to get it all on the under, you know, parts of the leaves and everything to get the product to perform. You don't. You can just foliar apply it and with an airplane and you know 3 gallons an acre and you're good. A total carrier, you know, with the product in there.
So you talked about potentially, if we're going to use it as a preventative, possibly using it subsequent applications, more than one through the season. We know that, you know, a lot of producers are moving that direction with their fungicides. So talk a little bit, what would our typical application rate be for first application of Sentry? And, you know, would the rate be the same or different for subsequent applications?
Well, if you were asking me and we were talking $8 beans, I may have a different answer, but I think in today's environment, we don't really need to be conservative because one application here would definitely be less than a bushel of soybeans. One application here would probably definitely probably less than, depends on where you're marketing your corn, probably less than 3 bushel, definitely, but maybe even somewhere around 2 bushel of increased production on a per acre basis. So you're not going to get me to be conservative at these prices. I'm going to be a little bit more bold, and I'm going to say I would go with 2 full rates. If it were me on beans, I would get one out there during my flowering process, because I do feel like we do lose some flowers and we do abort some pods because of fungal and bacterial pressure on plants early. So I would be out there early with the Sentry on the soybeans. I think most of our farms are too far gone now on corn to get a pre and pollination application of Sentry on. If I had the ability to do that, I would be going now. If I had the ability, let's just say I was 10 days away from tasseling, I would be out there with Sentry now. You know, 14 days prior to tassel would be even better. And then when I'm in there at my brown silk stage, I've hit 2 great windows there with Sentry because of, as I said earlier, the 21 plus days of viability in that plant. I've really vamped that corn plant up. So again, that's me. If I was, especially if I was really pushing for some high yields, I would have 2 applications on there. I would be out there pre-tasseled, and I would be post-pollination.
Okay, great. I guess one other thing maybe on people's minds this year is a little bit crazy here in 2021, which is when we're recording this. Some of the different products in the market seem to be limited on availability. Can you speak to what the availability is on Sentry? Do we have a good supply of that available if guys were wanting to look for it?
Well, the neat thing, Mark, is we make that in-house. Currently, we have a supply of raw materials. We have product made now, of course, and packaged, ready to go. But if we get an onslaught of people calling for this product, we have the ability to make it and package it and have it out the door in a matter of days. So as far as availability, and you are correct, I was just talking with someone this morning, and their freight rate has doubled. And the wait time on it has been extended out 14 days to even get the truck underneath it. So, but we have the product on hand, we have it packaged, we have it ready to ship. So that's not an issue. We even have it in totes if someone is needing that large a volume, that we can get it out in a tote quantity.
I would like to encourage guys to take a look at it. At the very least, maybe consider getting it into some trials on your farms. But would you have any other thoughts here as we wrap things up this morning?
Well, Mark, you said something critical there for me. You said trials. And I know some people try so many things, they don't really know what works. But when we're on the product we're talking about today, it's much like the guy who sprayed 3 strips with the fungicide, sprayed 3 strips. And I do like 3 different strips and spray boom passes. And I know that may be difficult for somebody to do that. Well, I'm not going to take that much time. But it's much like they were probably a couple, $3 cheaper per acre on the cost of the product, and made 3.5 bushels. Yeah, that's not a lot, but that was at $4 corn. So when we get into some of the price points we're getting in today, I feel like if one is not doing some type of research on your own farm, doing some type of evaluations on your own farm to say, okay, can I do better? Can I be better at this? Most people wait until corn is hitting the marks we're hitting today, and beans hitting the marks we're hitting today, to try to do better. But I think it's a constant quest on a farm to say, okay, if corn's at $4, if I can use this compound and I can make 3 more bushel to the acre at the same money, should I not be looking at more of that? Even though when I say it may not be status quo, that it may not be the one that's got ads in multiple popular magazines and ads at popular events of corn and soybean producers or what have you, but it's working for me. And I'm looking at that. That's what I see, Mark. I see that those type things I would be implementing on my farm on a yearly basis to say, can I improve this? And what levels is this going to take me to? It's much like I alluded to our biological programs. We're seeing less disease pressure where the guys have been using those multiple years. And that's interesting to me. Because we're helping that plan, and that's as we started out this podcast, it's really how can we help that plant do the job that it's here and designed to do, and that's what we're after.
Philip, I'd like to thank you for taking time this morning to share.
Thank you, Mark, for inviting me, and have a great day.
Again, this is Mark Rothermick with Genesis Ag. We appreciate you guys tuning in, and we look forward to getting some additional information out to you very soon on other products that we've got.